Anthony Edwards enjoys a good smile, and he had plenty to smile about tonight as the Minnesota Timberwolves took back home court, took a 2-1 advantage in their first-round series with the LA Lakers with a 116-104 win. They won the fourth quarter by 10, pulled away late with that Anthony Edwards 3, another one by Jaden McDaniels, and they take the 2-1 lead. Playoff Central Live, presented by State Farm, is underway. Jalen Rose, Isaiah Thomas. I'm Matt Weiner. It's good to have you along with us. Luka Doncic, a big story in this game, apparently dealing with some sort of a stomach bug. Clearly was not himself in terms of his movement on the floor. He wasn't great. Lakers hung for much of this game. In the end, what was the difference for you?
I think one of the main differences is they're picking on Luka. And we were talking about this earlier in the Indiana Bucks series where they're making Halliburton guard and Gary Trent Jr. had a big game. Now we're seeing the exact same thing with Jaden McDaniels and Luka. And every time Luka's in front of him, he's being aggressive. And so now you're going to do a double screen to get Luka into action. You're going to get a single screen to get Luka into action. They're forcing him to work. And I know that he was under the weather today, but that's a game plan that's really working for Minnesota.
Yeah, and what
And Daniels, we know him as a lockdown defender, and rightfully so, because he can guard multiple positions. But I appreciate how he's improved his ball handling and his ability to knock down open threes when available, but for the most part, slashing to the basket and finishing over the top just like that.
You know, what I find interesting is that, you know, LeBron James ends up with 38 points, 10 rebounds on the road. Normally, when he does that on the road, that's a win. But what we're seeing here now is that he's in this series, and he's not the best athlete, right? We're looking at Anthony Edwards, who clearly is the best athlete, you know, in this series. And I think that's really affecting the way the Lakers are looking and playing. Because, you know, a 38-10 night on the road, you know, normally is a playoff win for a LeBron James team. But, you know, tonight they lose by 12, and he has a great game. But Edwards, you know, is the star of the show because of his athleticism, his three-point shooting, and his dominance.
But also, there's a fatal flaw with the Lakers. When you let go of Anthony Davis, those are now LeBron James's minutes. So LeBron James is, in theory, playing power forward. Jackson Hayes isn't giving them much. They're trying to give Goodwin minutes now. The Lakers are very thin up front. And that's where Minnesota's actually strong. They have multiple big guys, Naz Reid, Randall, Gobert. They have so many guys to play up front at those minutes in those two spots. And I think that's overwhelming the Lakers. That's why they're dominating points in the paint as well.
Plus 30 in the paint, Minnesota was. They were plus 15 off turnovers. That was a huge problem for the Lakers tonight. 28 points Minnesota scored off 19 Laker turnovers. Nearly as many turnovers as assists for the LA Lakers. And in Luka's 38-point minutes, the 41 minutes, they're minus 10. The Lakers starters, to your point about depth, they did all their best damage with the bench. It wasn't the starters. Starters are getting outscored consistently.
Yeah, and you look at Minnesota and you look at this series. I mean, Minnesota is the more taller, athletic, more physical team. The Lakers in this series, when you look at the Timberwolves, you know, the Lakers are really a small team compared to Minnesota. They're smaller, they're less athletic, they're not as fast, and Minnesota has the dominant athlete in the series. So doesn't spell a good series for the Lakers right now.
Well, depending on how you're ranking it, the Lakers may have the best player in the series, depending on what you think of Luka Doncic at full strength. Tonight, dragging a little bit. You guys have played through stuff like this before. Every NBA player has at some point. How do you overcome when you're feeling the way he probably felt tonight?
Well, Luka is the best offensive player.
I said depending on the ranking.
He's not the best player, you know, all around. But offensively, we will give him the nod as being the best offensive player. Where he's being picked on at, as Jalen pointed out accurately, is on the defensive side of the ball. And then when you're not feeling well, old school, we never told anybody
Correct.
we weren't feeling well.
Jeez.
We never acted sick out on the floor because that immediately makes you a target.
Sure.
Now, for the fans and the general public watching, they get a little sympathy for you, you know,
Great
and
drama.
they get to feel
Great
sorry
drama,
for you.
right? Yeah.
But for the guy that you playing against and the team that you playing against, you are the weak link. Not only are you the weak link, but you're physically ill and you're out here playing in the playoffs against us. Clear out every time we see him. Let's go at him because he's weak. And that's all you need in the playoffs. You need one player to seriously break down. And when that one player breaks down, now the whole team is affected.
And then the other thing is you talk about Anthony Edwards being, you know, the most complete player right now. When you watch the end of that game, just think about the execution. For Minnesota, it's give the ball to Anthony because they're going to double and triple team him without doing any action.
Yeah.
For the Lakers, Jay McDaniels guarding one-on-one against Luka. They're guarding LeBron one-on-one. They're sending help when necessary. And so I think the Lakers are actually in trouble. I talked about this before the series, but now I see these fighters in the ring. Minnesota will be kicking themselves if they lose this series.
And J.J. Redick is clearly looking for the right kind of lineups. The Jackson Hayes thing is a little bit of a head scratcher at this point in the series because it's the third straight game he's played single-digit minutes. They're starting him, but he's not on the floor for very long, and it's a curious thing. Why not just play small to start?
Here, this is basketball knowledge, rule, whatever you want to call it. A taller, bigger, stronger guy will always beat a smaller, little guy. Now, what gives the smaller, little guy a chance is if that taller, bigger, stronger athlete makes a mistake. And if that taller, bigger, stronger athlete don't make a mistake, that little guy has no shot, right? And what we're seeing now is the taller, bigger, stronger players of Minnesota playing against smaller athletes. They're dominant. Now, if quickness and speed doesn't take over and Minnesota doesn't start making mistakes like they did in game 2, right, with their taller, stronger players, the little guys got no shot. They just don't.
It's definitely a tall man's game, and it's spoken from one of the greatest players of all time who happened to be considered a small guy and a back-to-back champion. But what needs to happen for the Lakers is during the regular season, you were able to go to Austin Reeves as a consistent number 3 option. But the athleticism and the defensive prowess from Minnesota ain't really allowing him to get off like that. Guys like Rui Hachimura ain't really getting off like that. So it's going to be curious to see, A, how Luka feels going into the next game, but B, the only way to me the Lakers going to be able to actually win this series if it's just Luka and LeBron just go nuclear with their numbers. Right. Otherwise, I don't see them having the attack to beat Minnesota in their depth.
Well, that's kind of the way this roster is set up. Austin Reeves was good from three-point range tonight, and that's something they'll need moving forward. But really, the way they've set it up in terms of the usage and who's going to have the ball, those two guys need to be great.
And now we're going into game 4. And as the series goes on, the physicality starts to wear on you, right? So you get a little slower, you don't jump as high, and you don't run as fast, and you don't shoot as straight, because now the defenses are really locked in. We know your plays, you know all plays. Now it comes down to who's got the best athletes and who can get to the rim and do the stuff that you can't teach. Right now, Minnesota has the guys that can do the stuff that you can't teach.
Chris Finch had the better athletes on the floor tonight in the Game 3 win, and here is the Minnesota head coach.
Hoàn thành video của mình, đây là kết thúc nha. Không ghi mấy đâu, cứ đánh đi cứ đặt ôm kia là biết là máy máy. Ôm thì ôm đi.
Nhưng mà nó có ốp rồi anh ơi.
Ôm rồi. Anh kia bật cái máy của Trung Quốc. Vâng. Xin chào cả mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình. Hôm nay mình sẽ tiếp tục hướng dẫn các bạn làm vợt. Và hôm nay bọn mình sẽ có tiêu đề là máy xay. Bây giờ mình bắt đầu làm nhé. Tức là đây là mình thuê rồi. Đây là mình thuê rồi. Ok.
4 mẹ đúng không? 1 mẹ đâu?
3 mày 4 đầu 4 đã bảo bà.
Ô lúc đầu tưởng nó về nó lấy 4
Phong ơi, mẹ Phong mang về hỏi là đàn cày chết chất lên bò nó nở.
Bà ơi.
Tận tay nhà này. Chị giúp mình nó này.
Chị quay đi nhắn lại đi, ba mẹ.
Ba mẹ á.
Đã bảo bà từ đầu rồi. Nó mang về nó cầm vào tay
Thế
không biết.
Tại vì nó bay vào tay mày là anh không biết.
Ok, sau anh về thì bảo sao?
Hôm nãy mẹ nó nấu mì đâu.
Nhắn làm gì?
Mẹ đã nấu mì đâu.
Ba có ba mẹ rồi.
Đấy, ta ba mà đợi tao không phải là ba mẹ mình.
Chính nó. Biết chưa?
Ba mẹ nó sẽ nhận ra. Dạ đúng rồi, cái này cả cái là gì?
Có lần lúc bài này tôi nên bị đúng nhiều nè. 61 cộng mấy thì bằng 65. 1 mấy thì bằng 5.
Bé cao ấy nhỉ?
Không. 1 mấy thì bằng 5.
Bao 3 là đi, không bao 4 rồi, nó có đi điên máu rồi. Ngu vãi trưởng.
Nó tụng 2 tụng 2.
Người bao 3 đang tu rồi ơi.
3 mấy thì bằng 3 cộng
Này vượt sâu này. Mẹ đứt, rồi mất xe. Mất xe.
Bạn bị cái liều gì?
Cái này gì này? Bo này gì này?
Ba cái đéo gần rồi.
Gần đứt gì?
Con mẹ tít.
Biết rồi nhưng mà vẫn xa.
Thôi sao rồi?
Giờ lấy xe đâu lại chạy đây, trời ơi.
Tự lưng.
Đố tôi sao mới chết còn hơn mình ơi. Kiểu nó chơi nó mới chạy bo bao giờ ấy, tất thằng danh nó chơi cùng nó bảo nó chạy bo ấy, nhưng mà nó không chạy đâu, nó không cần để não đâu.
1 cộng mấy. 1 cộng mấy thì lớn.
Này và đại mó chạy đến đây và lại đường tiếp.
61 cộng thêm mấy thì lớn hơn 64.
Tất nhiên lúc bố mình này ba vậy.
61 cộng thêm nó cộng thêm.
Ấy có người ấy.
Nhưng 1 4, nó là 4.
Có người. Để nó bắn nó võ lại cái gì.
Thôi thất nhỉ.
Không đi rồi.
Ngáo cả nó bên kia nó rồi bắn lại này.
Không, bo 3 nó không bắn lại đâu. Trẻ đây nó võ lại. Nó đón mà nhưng mà
Không đón.
đi mất rồi.
Có thể biết ở thi thì nó có cái câu này không?
Em đi mất rồi. Còn anh
Nếu
vẫn
như
lại.
thì đến tuần sau số 5 này cộng với số mấy thì
Đấy có xe đây. Xe
không? 5 cộng mấy rồi thì
ôi xa thế. Ui
Ai do.
trước đây qua chỗ này xe chỗ này. Trời ơi. Kìa xe kìa. Con cố chạy nốt sắp đến rồi. Bao 4 rồi đây này, nó đi điên đấy.
Càng ngày càng xe.
Đường tiếp thôi.
2 cộng 5 bằng 7. Nếu mà xét trừ ở ô vào thì nó đi
Mà ông hồi hộp cái này nha. Mà giờ có được xe chắc gì đã làm kịp.
75.
Vậy mó mình còn đâu. Nào ra lấy xe học lớp. Ta sẵn cái vòng đây. Ta đi trên trời lạnh.